Excuse me, I'm Greg Keffler. I believe your principal left an envelope for me.
You're from the Fraser Institute.
Yes.
You're here for some numbers,
Yes.
so you can rank the high schools.
We prefer to think of it as our annual school report cards.
Your hit list really hurt our school.
Are you sure it was the list?
Well, parents started sending their kids to West Side schools. Enrollment here dropped. At one time, there were even rumors of closing JO.
Look, we don't tell people where to go to school, but we believe they should have the right to choose where they do go to school.
And I believe in healthy communities. And you cannot have a vibrant neighborhood without a high school that is supported by local families.
The numbers don't lie.
They're in there.
Where in there?
They're in there. You can use the room across the hall if you need some space to spread out.
You rang?
I was looking for an envelope in there.
I'm looking for my bell. It's never good being one dingle short of a full chime, especially on game day.
Did you happen to see an envelope in there?
No, but I can get out of your way. That's J.T. Palmer, JO's first principal, back in 1912, when the school began at South Van High.
The school, like the community around it, was born from the mud of a clear-cut rainforest. The first modern settlers of the area were tough, resourceful, and largely working class. This was the boonies, and cows competed with streetcars for right-of-way. When it formed in 1891, the municipality of South Vancouver was totally separate from the rest of the city. The region had its own fire hall, city hall, and police force. As development grew in South Vancouver, the school board saw the need for a high school, so the trustees corralled 58 grade 9 kids into 2 unused classrooms at Lord Selkirk Elementary and recruited J.T. Jake Palmer from King Edward High School to head things up. This was the start of secondary education in our neck of woods. wasn't until 1921 that a purpose-built standalone secondary school was constructed in South Van. The two-story, 12-room structure backed onto 43rd Avenue west of Fraser Street, where JO's big grass playing field is today. Jake Palmer was pleased with the facility, but mortified to learn that the provincial government had renamed it after their premier of the day, John Oliver. For decades, the principal ignored the bureaucrats' decision and continued to refer to his school as South Van High. By 1926, the school's enrollment had surged to 961, so a second building with 8 classrooms was built next to the main school. It was dubbed the Matric Building, and then in later years officially named Unit 2 Annex, but everyone today knows it as the Barn. J.T. Palmer, who walked with a limp from an old sports injury and carried a cane that he was rumored to wield on rebellious students, built his school into a respectable institution. By 1929, when South Van amalgamated with Vancouver, JO had over 1,000 students, making it the largest high school in the province. As the Great Depression decimated the world economy in the 1930s, JO continued to grow, albeit at a slower rate. Unemployment was rampant and 3/4 of the students' families received relief from the government. JO sports programs continued to evolve despite the school's less than ideal athletic facilities. From 1926 to 1940, the school's only gymnasium was the South Vancouver Horticulture Hall, where farmers displayed produce and poultry. This was JO's real barn. It is a testament to the ingenuity of the school's teachers and coaches that they were able to produce fine athletes in a barn and on nearby South Memorial Park's grimy black cinder running track. And rounding out the Dust Bowl decade was the legendary sprint at the 1939 Inter-High track meet where JO's speedster Gene Kennedy nosed past Britannia Bullet Barbara Howard to win the 50-yard dash in the senior girls aggregate title. The following year, Barbara Howard attended JO for her senior matric and helped the school's track team demolish McGee at the city meet. Howard won the aggregate that season and was recently inducted into the BC Sports Hall of Fame for being the first black woman to represent Canada in international athletic competition. By the end of the 1930s, John Oliver had weathered the worst of the economic crisis and the school entered the new decade on a singing note thanks to gung-ho student Frankie Perrette. The talented pianist and trumpeter wrote a school cheer in 1937 that became an instant hit with the JO crowd at pep rallies and sports events. Despite the fact that a world war was erupting in Europe and Asia, John Oliver had a lot to cheer about. The school finally got a real gymnasium in 1940. Today it is known as the Girls' Gym, but back then it was a state-of-the-art co-ed arena with hoop dreams and volleyball spike masters. As if buoyed by the unveiling of the new facility, JO's athlete continued the winning ways. Wally Alexander lit up the JO track team from 1945 to 1948. He typically won races with grace and authority, but Alexander placed second at the 1947 provincial meet, which was good enough to give JO a half-point lead over McGee for the meet victory. As World War II continued to spread, an estimated 700 JO alumni fought in the war. 106 died. The names of the fallen are listed on a plaque at the school's entrance. Among them is the author of the JO song, Lieutenant Frank R. Perrette. The war ended and JO student Jimmy Pattison was the first newsie to hit the streets, hawking souvenir copies of the Victory in Europe edition. That venture may have fizzled for the Bugle Boy, but today Jimmy is the wealthiest deal maker in BC. The 1950s brought big concrete changes to the school. A new building facing 41st Avenue provided gleaming new classrooms for the rising tide of students. By 1954, JO consisted of 10 buildings spread over 6 city blocks. Enrollment peaked at 3,300 in 1956, making the former South Van High the largest secondary school in Canada and the third largest in North America. Many of South Van's new residents were refugees from post-war Europe, including a large contingent of Germans who opened shops on Fraser Street and built churches throughout the area. With the churches came choirs, and that singing tradition carried over into JO, where the school's legendary choir masters Ifer Roberts, Sherwood Robson, and Theo Reppel molded generation after generation of young voices into singing success. JO's Brahms Choir won the annual Shield almost every year from 1931 to 1980. The school also produced elaborate musicals and plays that wowed judges at the annual Vancouver School Drama Festival. Tibor Kalmar was the JO drama teacher who directed a good chunk of these productions, from the 1980 run of Oliver to 1993's Rehearsal for Murder and everything in between. With the school jammed to the rafters with kids, there was no shortage of bodies to recruit for any endeavor, whether it was the waltz team, the jazz ensemble, or the swim squad. There was a group for every activity, except that one cultural phenomenon that was about to take the world by storm: rock and roll. In the 1970s, the hair got longer and the music weirder. 80s, the hair got shorter and the music synthier. Synthesizer? More synthetic. But the school still flourished, including its athletic program, which continued to be led by exceptional PE teachers. The boys' gym is named in honor of Hugh Marshall, a JO grad of 47 who later taught PE at the school from 54 to 87. One JO staffer who looked like a PE teacher but taught English was Ron Turner. He also led the Jokers football program from 1975 to 2002. Turner had the privilege to coach amazing gridiron greats like John Pankratz, Rick Goltz, William Loftus, and Tony Antonovic, all of whom went to the CFL. In the late 80s and early 90s, gang activity in the Sunset neighborhood flared up, and media reports misled some people into thinking that JO was a gang school. VPD Sergeant Steve Elson, who grew up in the area, attended JO, was the school's liaison officer 92 to 97, worked in youth crime from 2000 to 2003, and headed the police department's citywide school liaison program from 2008 to 2010, can't recall a single major violent crime ever taken place at JO. Yet many in the community cling to their misconceptions. Then in 1998, you guys at the Fraser Institute introduced your annual report card of high schools, and you know how low we ranked on those early tabulations. The near-death blow came 4 years later when the school board announced that parents could send their kids to schools outside of their catchment area. JO's enrollment declined to the point where today the campus is half empty, despite the fact that Southeast Vancouver has one of the highest concentrations of young families in the city. The school has worked hard to restore its reputation. A popular mini school for highly motivated students was established in the barn. A cutting-edge digital immersion program was introduced that will soon make JO the first wireless public school in Vancouver. And JO grad of 83, John Montalbano, who oversees a $200 billion investment fund company, helped found an adventure-based learning program for at-risk youth called Take a Hike. The efforts are paying off. The school's attendance and graduation rates have improved. The same tight-knit camaraderie, sense of common purpose, desire to help others that pervaded these hallways all those years ago is still here today.
It never left. I wish I could say the future looks bright for John Oliver, but until the entire community rallies behind it. Until parents who live down the street begin sending their kids here. This must be what you're looking for. The numbers that don't lie.
No, they don't. But they don't always tell the whole story either.